We're going deep on the waiver wire today. We're going to be looking at quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, wide receivers, everything in between. We're going to try and find those diamonds in the rough that you can pick them up, throw them in your lineup or on your bench so you can get a return on your investment going forward. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're talking about the waiver wire almost every single day, strategizing over these players. On top of that, we're doing as many deep dives as possible with the You Need series, and we cut it straight down the line, the good, the bad, the ugly on those players, with the advanced analytics to see whether or not you need that player for fantasy football. On top of that, we use these videos to help you set those lineups. Click that button right now. Stop missing out. Rick Flair's watching. You do not want to disappoint him, so get it done. We're starting off with Aaron Rodgers. We got Davante Adams. We got Garrett Wilson. Both of them are nasty. Both of them are going off. And we're going to start getting some production, especially now that Davante Adams is ramping up. The targets are primarily going to those two wide receivers. Conklin's getting a little bit of something there. Aaron Rodgers is probably going to spice it up a little bit. It might be a little bit volatile. But if you're looking for a quarterback off the waiver wire, this is an option for you. He's got the weapons now. He's feeling good about himself. And Garrett Wilson's going to splash on some plays, and Davante Adams is too. It's hard not to hit in fantasy when you're that studly at wide receiver. Mike Gesicki has been very studly as of late. Back 2 games, 26 fantasy points and 34. Off and on prior to that, but we're getting a lot of run in the offense. T. Higgins has been hurt all year, pretty much in and out of the lineup. Mike Gesicki's getting a lot of work around the red zone. He's always a good pull because he's seeing a good route participation rate. He's seeing a fair bit of targets going his way. There's always upside with Mike Gesicki. Ray Davis is one of the top handcuffs in football right now because if something happens to Cook, he's going to be getting the volume. We've already seen what that looks like a few weeks ago, and it was glorious. We're catching the ball in the backfield. We're a handcuff +2 because even as a backup, there's some games where we can still be productive for fantasy. We're still getting touches, and that's a good thing to have, that you have a handcuff that you can use here and there when you're in a bind. Quentin Johnston is getting the deep balls. He's getting those contested catches downfield. He's winning against zone. He's getting those opportunities. He had a 19% target share last week, saw 5 targets. We're averaging 5 to 6 targets per game. We're seeing a good ADOT, average depth of target downfield. That means that's a wide receiver that you may want to look at. I look for him to be volatile, though. It's the Chargers offense. Not much volume in the passing game here, and plus we're sharing it with Ladd McConkey and Josh Palmer, but still, Quentin Johnston, week to week, has some upside, especially if you play the matchups right. Daniel Jones, we got Malik Neighbors. We're chucking the ball all over the yard to him. We're also getting a little bit of rushing production each game, which is always great for fantasy football. And we're down and we're up. We're down and we're up. But that's what you expect from quarterbacks off the waiver wire. But he has potential to give you some upside, mainly due to Malik Neighbors, so you want to play the matchups with him. Daniel Jones is on the road against Carolina. You may want to fire him up. Typically, quarterbacks do well against them, but we're also looking at Taysom Hill because these Saints are banged up. They're banged up at wide receiver. They're banged up at running back. He's going to get some extra looks. He's going to get carries. He's going to get targets. He's going to get goal line work. Taysom Hill is one of the top tight ends to look at off the waiver wire. Tyler Allgeier is one of the top handcuffs in all of fantasy football. If Bijan Robinson goes down, he's easily seeing 20-plus opportunities on any given day, and he's in one of the best offenses in the National Football League. Underrated handcuff, should be rostered in all leagues. Ricky Pearsall, Jauan, Jennings, pick your poison with this. Pearsall is the rookie, very good route runner, seeing targets early in his career, back-to-back games of over 4 targets, 9 targets on the season. Jauan Jennings, we know he can be productive when one of the top wide receivers are injured. He might be a hitter going forward, but Ricky Pearsall might develop going forward. Just pick your poison with that one. Justin Herbert starting to get it done. Back-to-back games with decent production. Quentin Johnston's back, so he'll be able to throw it downfield with more confidence. Hunter Henry with Drake May is getting alive again, and we've been hitting for these last few weeks. 17 points in week 6, 27 in week 7, 16 in week 8, 20 in week 9. Drake May in this offense makes this offense beautiful, makes Hunter Henry beautiful, and is a guy that you need to pick up off waivers if he's there, if you're looking for a tight end or if you're playing the matchups with tight end. We are on the road against the Bears. That might be a little tricky, but it is the Patriots. It's always going to feel a little tricky. Blake Corum's one of the top handcuffs in the National Football League. If something happens to Kyren Williams, he might be seeing a lot of touches. Kyren Williams does not come off the field. He's getting a lot of work. We're in the back nine of the season. If I have Kyren Williams, I'm getting Blake Corum. That being said, Kyren Williams is owned in every league. Blake Corum should be owned in every league. If I have Kyren Williams, I'm trying my best to have Blake Corum. Elijah Moore runs a lot of routes. He's getting the targets. Recently, we're seeing targets of 6, 12, and 9. We are getting volume. And if you're looking for just volume and targets and wanting to see where the chips fall for your fantasy lineup, Elijah Moore's a guy to look at because we're getting those opportunities. We're on bye this week, but still, nothing's going to change going forward. It's those 3 wide receivers, Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy, and Cedric Tillman. They're all running a lot of routes, and they're all getting a lot of targets. Jatavian Sanders is a tight end to pay attention to, especially 14-man league, 16-man league. He is starting to rack up targets. Week 5, 5 targets. Week 6, 7 targets. Week 7, 6 targets. 1 target in week 8. 5 targets in week 9. And everybody's talking about him now since he went off. We talked about him last week because we had to talk about Jalen Coker and company, and we brought him up because there's going to be more movement in the offense. However, he's been doing a little something that you need to pay attention to. We're getting a lot of snaps. We're running routes. For the long term, you probably want to be investing in Jatavian Sanders for Dynasty. See if you can catch him on the cheap, because right now the price isn't up yet. But it might be less liquid now that he scored 19 fantasy points. But he's running a lot of routes and seeing some targets. Audric Estime, it's rumored that he's going to see more work. That might be an extra snap or two. That might be a few extra carries. But this guy can rumble, look very good at Notre Dame. One of the top running backs in the country last year. Not the fastest running back, but we move well. We got good change of direction skills. We build up speed, and we can hum it. We are hard to tackle once we're at full speed as well. DBs are going to have to make a business decision with this dude. And if he does get the workload anytime, if something happens to Javonte Williams, he's going to be a top handcuff. Ray McCloud is going to see more targets. Drake London's hurt, and he's a guy in this offense up and down the whole season. Started off pretty hot for an ancillary wide receiver in the offense, but now's his time to run more routes. A 92.6 route participation rate last week. We might see that going forward. Jonnu Smith is hitting in the box, scored 15 fantasy points last week, 12 the week before, 35 in week 7, 19 in week 5. And this offense is fast-paced. They're moving the ball around. We got Tua back. Jonnu Smith is the guy to go after. Jalen Wright, because he can house it on any given play, and we might see a ramp-up period for him in the back 9 of the season. Once everything's said and done, they might lean on him to see what they got, to see what they can do with him going forward. On top of that, if there's an injury to one of those running backs, he's going to get more opportunity. And now that Tua's back, this offense is going to be moving the ball at a better pace. Parker Washington is just going to be running a lot of routes, seeing more targets with Christian Kirk out. That being said, if you're looking for routes and targets, this is a guy to look at. This is a guy to make some gambles on. Should be rostered in a lot of leagues since last week, but still, he didn't hit last week. Might be dropped. Look at him going forward. Emari Demercado and Trey Benson. Both these running backs you need to pay attention to. If something happens to James Conner, they are going to split the workload. Both of them have good pop in the step. Emari Demercado gets a lot of work in the passing game. He gets a lot of those money touches. However, Trey Benson, the rookie, is also very dangerous in space. Demarcus Robinson, even though Cooper Kupp's back, even though Puka's back to some degree, he's still getting work. And the defenses are focusing on those 2 wide receivers and Kyren Williams. There are times where he's just sneaking out there and getting those targets. You may want to gamble on him in some weeks. Sean Tucker is a premier handcuff running back. Prior to him emerging, he was not a handcuff running back. Now we're up to handcuff running back status. If there's an injury to one of those running backs, Bucky Irvin or Rachaad White, Tucker's going to see more work, and he's going to see solid work and solid opportunities. He's actually probably one of the most underrated handcuffs in football right now. Jaylen Warren, if you're drafting him in the 10th round of underdog drafts in August, you might be picking him up now since he's free, getting workload. The workload's ramping up. We're going to have some good matchups. Russ is cooking a little bit. Maybe. Braelon Allen, kind of same as the other running backs here. We're getting opportunity. We're going to be the guy if Breece Hall goes down. Again, this is another young handcuffed running back with some upside. Jalen, McMillan, Trey Palmer, and then Sterling Shepard. Pick your poison here. Jalen McMillan's running the most routes. He was out last week. It wasn't a great matchup anyways, and this matchup coming up is not that great either. You may want to stay away, but if you're looking for volume, McMillan's running the most routes. Sterling Shepard has been the most dependable as of late. Trey Palmer's that deep ball guy. He just needs to bring in 1 or 2 for that splash play, so he could give you that Will Fuller effect. Kayshonne Boutte's running a lot of routes, a 98.1% route participation rate. We saw 6 targets. Kendrick Bourne's back. He's getting some opportunity in this offense. DeMario Douglas is getting a good target share week in and week out. With Drake May back, you need to watch these wide receivers. Boutte's getting a lot of work. Kendrick Bourne has always been good to some degree. And Douglas has always been racking up the targets, but they've been always short. That being said, you're watching this offense. Drake May is the investment here. We've talked about 4 Patriots in this video, none of them running backs. Drake May is the investment here. That's the other quarterback I'm talking about today. Troy Franklin's a rookie wide receiver you need to pay attention to for the rest of the season. If not, just watch me talk about his stats for next year, because the route participation rate is hovering around 50% or more each game. The target shares in double digits. We are getting volume, and we are getting targets downfield. We used to play with Bo Nix at Oregon. He is Bo Nix's right-hand man from back in the day, last year. But Bo Nix loves this guy, and when he's on the field, he gets targeted. His target per routes is up there, and he's a guy that's getting a lot of work. And once he starts getting more routes ran in this offense, he's probably going to cook to some degree in fantasy. Jalen Tolbert's going to get more opportunity. CeeDee Lamb's dealing with that injury. We do not know how much he's going to be impacted. Jonathan Mingo's not really a guy right now. Jalen Tolbert's still getting targets. It's been up and down, but it is the Dallas Cowboys. He's also Jalen Tolbert is not like a premier athletic prospect or anything like that. But we're getting volume in this offense. This is a player you may want to gamble on if you're hurting and his game script looks good. Jalen Coker. Mingo's gone. Mingo had a dress rehearsal last week. Mingo doesn't usually play that much. He doesn't get that much opportunity. And then Jalen Coker has been grading out as one of the top wide receivers in football, at least in week 8. Week 9 did not go so hot for fantasy football, but we did get some run. We saw 3 targets, catching 2 of those for 36 yards. This offense sucks. It's nasty. Adam Thielen's coming back. I'll always give you the negative. But Jalen Coker is a lottery ticket. He's not a guaranteed thing. And there's some things that you may like about him that could go off later in the year. Rashad Bateman is that up and down wide receiver that you hate to start, but there's just some games that he's just going to go off. And if you need to take a stab or a gamble at a wide receiver on any given Sunday, this might be your bet, because he's getting those deep targets. He's going to get enough targets to make the gamble worth your while, usually like 4 to 5 a game. Lamar Jackson's been on point this year, and it's going to be everything or nothing with this guy. So that's what you're seeing with Rashad Bateman, and I'm not worried about Deontay Johnson. I'm not picking him up to be my lead wide receiver. I'm not even really picking him up unless I need him to just throw in the lineup and pray to the fantasy gods that he brings in one of those deep targets. But those are the players we're looking at today. 30-plus players, wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, and tight ends. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next video.